BMW's second generation G26 era 4 Series Gran Coupe offers a more flexibly stylish choice in the profitable sector for premium badged Gran Turismo style mid-sized executive cars. For once, two rear doors don't compromise the visual appeal of a model of this kind, nor does their extra weight dilute the handling purity. Of course, there are more practical choices in this segment, and certainly cheaper ones. After trying this BMW though, you might not be quite so attracted to them. For brand enthusiasts, there's certainly plenty to like.
BMW claims the differences with this second generation 4 Series Gran Coupe are more than skin deep and will be equally evident in terms of drive dynamics. Well, we'll see. But also much here has changed over a 3, far more than was the case with the previous version of this car. The chassis has been extensively tweaked and there's a wider rear track that gives this G26 series design a 21mm lower centre of gravity than its more conservative showroom stablemate. And that's just the start. The body and suspension mountings are stiffer, and on standard suspension this 4 Series rides 10mm lower than a 3. There are also firmer springs and anti-roll bars, plus this Gran Coupe gets a freshly developed, double-jointed spring strut, front suspension and a 5-link rear axle. Otherwise, the basic winning Bavarian formula remains much the same. Rivals have long tried to copy the front-engine, rear-wheel drive BMW layout with its near-perfect 50-50 weight distribution, but never quite managed to deliver a package with the same kind of involving finesse. Super effective traction and stability systems keep those back wheels in check, so that if you're not a driving enthusiast, it'll all feel quite normal. But if you are, then the feeling of being propelled up the road by the back wheels as you exit a bend rarely fails to offer up a great feeling of pleasure. That's assuming you've got the rear-driven setup and you haven't opted for the xDrive 4-wheel drive system we're trying here that the most powerful variant has to have. But even there, this keeps you rear-driven for most of the time. The rest of the 4 Series Gran Coupe range uses petrol power, with almost all customers who don't choose the 420D ending up behind the wheel of the conventional rear-drive-only 420i model, which offers 184 horsepower and makes 62 miles an hour from rest in 7.9 seconds on the way to 146 miles an hour. This model's 2-litre 4-cylinder power plant is lighter this time round and gains higher injection pressures, though you still have to rev it quite hard to assess its full performance, which is no hardship. The same engine is also offered in an uprated 258 horsepower state of tune in the alternative 4-cylinder petrol model, the 430i, in which form the performance figures improve to 6.2 seconds and 155 miles an hour. The base 420i petrol model does without the 48-volt tech, but still manages up to 42.8 mpg and up to 150 grams per kilometre of CO2. If we accept that one of the primary purchasing priorities for potential buyers of this car is going to be the way it looks, then BMW seems very well set here. This second generation 4 Series Gran Coupe is wider, longer, taller and sleeker than before. But as with every Mark II 4 Series, when it comes to design, there's no doubt about the main talking point. The more vertical, upright kidney grille, intended to reference classic BMWs like the pre-war 328 sports car. Arrow-shaped bonnet creases and headlamp contours with U-shaped fibre-optic light guides zero in on this feature, which has to rather awkwardly incorporate this centrally mounted number plate and is framed by three-dimensional surfacing. In profile, a previous owner might appreciate the increase in size of this second-generation G26 era model. It's 143mm longer, 27mm wider and 53mm taller than its predecessor, which makes it a bit bigger in every direction than an equivalent 3 Series saloon. And smoothly sculpted surfaces structured by crisp lines deliver the required dose of elegance. Plus, the flush-fitting door handles, unique at launch to this Gran Coupe 4 Series body shape, have a streamlined design. The gently stretched extended roof silhouette further back flows gracefully into the slightly raised and short rear section of the car. Time to take a look inside, with cabin access possible via your smartphone if you've specified the digital key option and have the right kind of handset. Once you take a seat up front, you'll find the cabin of this G26 generation Gran Coupe a good deal more sophisticated than that of the previous generation model. As before, there's a sportier vibe than you'd expect in a car of this kind. The high centre console and the flowing surface structure running from the instrument panel into the door cards, generating a cocooning feel in the front seats. And these leather-stitched sports chairs have been completely resculpted with contoured side bolsters. In terms of ergonomics, everything's now a little more canted towards the driver. The start button's been repositioned next to the restyled bespoke auto gear stick, and the steering wheel now befits the ambience of the slightly larger, more luxurious Gran Coupe this car has become. It's the screens of the standard live cockpit professional package that you'll probably notice first, though. A 12.3-inch monitor replacing the previous model's analogue dials in the instrument cluster, and a bigger centre dash xDrive infotainment display, now much better integrated into the centre of the fascia and 10.25-inch in size. There's some clever stuff incorporated into this setup, including the brand's connected package professional media package and what BMW calls an intelligent personal assistant, which works a bit like the Siri or Google Assistant systems you might use on your phone, and is here to answer questions you can voice to the car as you drive it. And in the rear, well, how easy will it be for your Gran to get into a Gran Coupe? Well, it's certainly an improvement on the first generation model and on a rival like Peugeot's 508 Fastback, but it's way off the spaciousness you'd find in a comparable Volkswagen Arteon. For most owners, the main thing will be provision this time round of 3 full-size seats. The back seat of the previous model was really only designed for 2. With the 2 outer positions, there's a standard of head and legroom that are both remarkably good for a car professing to be any kind of coupe, with knee space aided by these recessed seat backs. You wouldn't want to be stuck for very long in this middle pew, though, which is severely impeded by this very high transmission tunnel. Finally, let's take a look in the boot, accessed via this standard power opening tailgate. Once the hatch is open, separating the 2-part parcel shelf, it reveals a large but shallow space you've to access via quite a high loading lip. There's 470 litres of space on offer, 39 litres more than the previous generation model could provide, and 5 litres more than a competing Audi A5 Sportback. You might be surprised, though, to learn that this figure is still 10 litres less than you'd get in the boot of the slightly smaller 3 Series saloon, though the hatch format here does, of course, make this Gran Coupe a more practical proposition. If you need room for lengthier items, a flexible 40-20-40 split-folding rear backrest is provided as standard, which means you can push longer things like skis in between 2 rear-seated folk. If you require even more space and want to fold the entire rear bench, you'll be irritated to find that there are no cargo sidewall catches, so you have to go around to the side door and release the catches on top of the seat shoulders, at which point you find that the rear chairs don't fold completely flat. In this position, though, 1,290 litres of space is freed up, which should be ample for most owners. Still the car in its class that does it all. The sector benchmark, the go-to choice in its segment. If you're the kind of keener driver this model has traditionally appealed to, the answer's probably yes. There's a sustained level of excellence shot throughout this contender that key segment rivals in this class still can't quite match. Can it be criticised? Well, it would have been nice if the significant price rise that accompanied the launch of this second generation G26 series model could have included M adaptive suspension, which we think you really need to think seriously about adding to the lower powered variants to combat the slightly firm ride. Plus, of course, we could talk about that divisive front grille. Overall, If you're looking at buying a conventional mid-sized executive model, you may well not already have a Gran Coupe on your wish list. If so, then perhaps it ought to be, because BMW here has built a benchmark contender in this class. Just for once, it seems the kind of car you've dreamed about may also be the one you really need to choose.